Thank you, Mr. McLean, and good afternoon, brethren. It was December, and the afternoon light had already given way to the darkness of the night. Supper had been over for most, and suddenly, in the ever-growing darkness, seemingly out of nowhere, an uncoordinated crowd appeared. And they weren't dressed like dock workers, and because of the darkness of the new moon, no one could really make out who they were. They moved closer and closer to the docks, and as they moved together as one crowd, they started chanting. Everyone watching it got the impression that trouble was brewing. And the more we peered at them, we could see that they were Mohawk and Iroquois Indians. And man, were they angry. No one was going to try and stop them. And as they walked onto the docks, they started jostling each other and started knocking things over like drunken men would. And as they got right up to the ships, suddenly they turned and they jumped onto the ships, surprising the guards, knocked them down, and they started using their tomahawks and axes and started breaking open the chests and the cartons, and they started throwing it all into the Boston Harbor. What a tea party the Sons of Liberty threw on December 16th, 1773. Well, the colonists were tired of being taxed and taxed and taxed without representation. They didn't like paying for the war for the British, and they had no say in government. They wanted freedom, they wanted liberty from the rule, from being under the thumb of mighty England. Today is the 4th of July, and what a great day to speak of freedom and liberty. If anyone has seen the movie Braveheart, of course, Hollywood takes liberties, as we all know. At the very end, William Wallace, the leader of the Scots, who was fighting for independence from England, he's been betrayed, he's been captured, and he's going to die. In the closing scene, the very last words you hear are Wallace yelling as loud as he possibly can, "Freedom! Freedom!" An American patriot by the name of Patrick Henry, in March of 1775 to the Virginia Congress, stated, "Give me liberty or give me death." The title of the message is Freedom and Liberty. Freedom is not free. Many men and women have put their lives on the line for us. Generations ago, recently, and in many wars, to give us the freedom that we enjoy today and to give us liberty. Many of them died in battles on faraway lands, in countries and in towns and villages that some of them never even heard of until they were sent there. Some have died for freedom right here on United States soil, trying to preserve freedom and liberty for the United States and the people who live in it, believing that that was the right thing to do, to protect it and to pass it on to their children and their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren and all future generations, people that they might never see or never know. If you would, please turn to Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11. I'm going to read 13 to 16, breaking into a thought here. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off. They were assured, embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For those who say such things declare plainly that they seek a homeland. And truly, if they had called to mind that country from which they had come out, they would have had an opportunity to return. But now they desire a better, that is, a heavenly country. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. Brethren, except for Adam and Eve in the garden early on, mankind has never really, truly been free when you think about it. However, one day in the future, we all will be truly free again. If you would please turn back to toward the front into Luke 4. I'd like to read Luke 4:16 to 19. And so he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. And he was handed the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord." I'd like to read an aside here from this section from William Barclay's The New Daily Study Bible. He says, speaking here about Jesus Christ, it was Jesus' habit to go to the synagogue on the Sabbath. There must have been many things with which he radically disagreed and which grated on him. Yet he went. The worship of the synagogue might be far from perfect. Yet Jesus never omitted to join himself to God's worshiping people on God's Sabbath day. Brethren, Jesus was claiming to be a royal figure and to have a prophetic mission. Jesus did heal the brokenhearted. He set them free. The brokenhearted were those who were discouraged because of their plight in life. See any of that today in the world? Jesus proclaimed liberty to the captives. See any of that in the world today? In the Old Testament, captivity refers to Israel's exile. And brethren, if we know from reading the Bible, and if we think about history, slavery isn't new. Slavery's been around for thousands of years. And all colors of people were in slavery. It was nothing for people who who invaded a country to take the people that they beat down, put them into slavery. Jesus gave sight to the blind. Not only the blind in their eyes, but the blind in their mind. He set people free. There's references here to many of Jesus Christ's miraculous works, though not without spiritual overtones. Jesus set at liberty the oppressed. Know anybody who's oppressed today? This was originally the call of Israel, but the nation had failed in its assignment. What Israel had failed to do, Jesus does and continues to do. The image here addresses both physical and spiritual realities. Jesus proclaimed the acceptable year of the Lord, an allusion to the Jubilee year when all were set free. All debts were canceled. Everybody got their land back. All debts were forgiven. Slaves given their freedom, and ancestral lands were given back to the original families. It's true that mankind is not perfect, not today, and cannot be. However, it is also true that in God's kingdom, we will see a true and righteous government that is truly unattainable by mankind. All of us, all of mankind, want things. Sometimes we want them so bad that we will do things that are totally upside down. And we know it. We do it on purpose. Jezebel plotted a way to get Naboth's vineyard. David tried to cover up an illicit affair. And the list goes on and on and on through all of humanity. But it is Jesus Christ who can pull us out of every situation and get us right with God, if we go to him and let him do the work that only he can do. Yes, there's crying and pain sometimes. Things have to be made right. Restitution has to be made. Restitution. Here's a good one. How would you like to see all the looters who broke into stores and took things, bring those back to the store owner and say, we shouldn't have done this. If it's broken, we'll keep it and we'll pay you an additional 5, 10, 15% on top of it. And we're going to help you rebuild your store too. I wonder if that would make the news. David made more than one mistake, and so has the entire run of mankind. You know what? After the Revolutionary War, the British Empire didn't just stop taking advantage of people. Or because of the Revolutionary War, or because we dumped their tea into the harbor. Mahatma Gandhi took on the Raj, a nickname for the British. Initially, he wanted to help stop the discrimination and segregation of Indian nationals by the British in South Africa. During the Boer War, he started an all-volunteer Indian ambulance corps and had 1,100 volunteers. He told them that if they wanted citizenship and the right to have citizenship and be free, they had to shoulder responsibility. Imagine telling people that today. Back home in India, when he got there, he found out Britain had placed a heavy tax on salt, a dietary staple. And they said that Indians could not sell or collect salt. So in defiance of the government, he started a 240-mile march to the Arabian Sea to collect salt. He believed in nonviolent and non-cooperation as ways of dissent. Brethren, world wars and many other wars and so-called police actions around the globe have been fueled by greed and hatred. And ever since Genesis, when Cain killed Abel, the killing has gone on. Led by names like people like Hitler, Stalin, Lenin, Patrice Lumumba, and a multitude of others, for no other reason than hatred of someone different or for their own political or personal gain. Now, generally speaking, it is our leaders that get us into these predicaments, and usually they are the ones that suffer the least, but not always. Without commentary on current politics, Proverbs 29:2 reads, "When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan." Only God can teach us how to truly be free and truly set us free. Brethren, we're told in James 4:1, "Where do wars and fights come from among you? Do they not come from your desires for pleasure that cause war in your members?" That's from James 4:1. As future kings priests, leaders, and teachers, we must make it our goal daily to turn our hearts and minds to God and our brother Jesus Christ, and learn how to allow God's Spirit to guide us and teach us how to be compassionate to all people, caring for all people, forgiving all people, just as we have been forgiven and how we've been treated by God. And so we can be granted admission to God's coming kingdom. This month's Beyond Today magazine, I don't know if anybody got it in the mail today, some great articles in here. This one here is by Mr. Victor Kubik, Is There a Better Way? So let's all be in God's coming kingdom.